Premier League summer transfer window 2026 deals, ins and outs are accelerating, but Chelsea's spending changes everything. Manchester United are weighing Warren Zaïre-Emery. Arsenal are watching Bruno Guimaraes. Chelsea have completed Morgan Rogers, and that confirmed move takes us straight into the window's real power shift. The window's headline is speed, but speed can create confusion. Before we crown winners, we need to separate completed deals from reports that are still floating around the football ecosystem. Premier League summer transfer window 2026 deals, ins and outs. The early market is active, but the broad transfer lists don't confirm every individual move. The clubs gaining ground are the ones turning plans into registered business, not merely collecting links. Supporters should judge recruitment by squad improvement rather than by the number of dramatic headlines. Sky Sports is tracking Premier League transfers, loans, arrivals, and departures ahead of the 2026-27 season. That's useful as a market snapshot, but it isn't a certificate proving every reported move has been completed. Transfer reporting often bundles official announcements, negotiations, and newspaper claims into one fast-moving stream. The badge appears on screen, the fee gets repeated, and suddenly a rumor has the legal status of a signed contract. It hasn't. So which clubs are winning the early window? The honest answer is that the evidence supplied here doesn't allow a complete ranking. What we can say is that the gap between intention and execution matters more than the noise. A club considering an offer is still waiting. A club rejecting a major bid is setting a price. A club completing a record signing has made a decision that now carries sporting and financial consequences. Chelsea's business will dominate that conversation because Morgan Rogers is confirmed as a major investment later in this episode. Manchester United's interest in Warren Zaïre-Emery is a different category. Exciting, potentially significant, but still only a consideration of whether to make an offer. Arsenal's interest in Bruno Guimaraes sits in the same danger zone. The market isn't a trophy cabinet yet, it's a pressure test, and the next stories show who is actually taking the risk. That pressure brings us to Manchester United, where the name is enormous, but the wording is carefully modest. The question isn't whether Zaïre-Emery has joined, it's whether United will even make the first move. Manchester United consider bid for PSG midfielder Warren Zaïre-Emery. This is interest in a Paris Saint-Germain player, not an agreement between clubs. Zaïre-Emery would represent a major midfield statement, but the likely cost is exactly why the story remains delicate. United's fans can be excited by the talent without pretending the negotiation has already happened. According to a Sky Sports report on newspaper rumors, Manchester United are considering a bid for Paris Saint-Germain midfielder Warren Zaïre-Emery. That's the confirmed level of the story. United are considering whether to make an offer, no completed transfer is reported, no fee is supplied, and Paris Saint-Germain haven't been described as accepting anything. The attraction is obvious. Zaïre-Emery is one of Europe's most coveted young midfielders, and his presence would instantly make United's recruitment feel more ambitious. But a famous name can hide a complicated question. Would the player actually solve the team's problems, or would the club be paying heavily for the satisfaction of winning a transfer headline? United supporters are split between excitement and fee anxiety, and both reactions make sense. The next meaningful development won't be another link from a newspaper column. It'll be a formal offer, a response from Paris Saint-Germain, and evidence that Manchester United have a plan beyond admiring the player from a safe distance. United's story is still waiting for a bid. Arsenal's Bruno Guimaraes' interest is also unconfirmed, while Chelsea's Morgan Rogers move belongs in a different box entirely. Completed business. Transfer Live: Arsenal interest in Bruno Guimaraes as Chelsea complete Morgan Rogers deal. The live headline combines a reported Arsenal pursuit with a confirmed Chelsea signing, so the two parts mustn't be treated equally. Bruno Guimaraes remains identified with Newcastle United, and Arsenal interest doesn't mean a transfer is close. Chelsea's aggressive recruitment gives the confirmed side of the story far greater weight. The supplied package identifies Arsenal as interested in Newcastle United midfielder Bruno Guimaraes. That could point to a desire for more control and authority in midfield, especially against opponents who force Arsenal to play through pressure. But interest isn't an agreement. Guimaraes hasn't joined Arsenal. No completed deal is reported, and the story shouldn't be inflated into a done transfer simply because the tactical fit sounds attractive. The second half is clearer. Morgan Rogers has moved from Aston Villa to Chelsea, and that completed deal gives Chelsea a real advantage in the early window conversation. Arsenal may be exploring midfield ambition. Chelsea have already committed serious resources to attack. Those are different forms of power. One is a conversation, the other is now sitting inside the squad with expectations attached. For fans, the comparison is unavoidable. Arsenal are being judged on whether they can land the midfielder they reportedly want. Chelsea are being judged on whether Rogers can justify the scale of their investment. That distinction matters because rumors can be abandoned quietly, while a record signing walks straight into every matchday debate. And while Arsenal are linked with Guimaraes, their attention may also touch Manchester United's biggest unresolved forward question. Marcus Rashford now sits inside a three-club Premier League tussle, but nobody has agreed a deal. The other Chelsea, Arsenal, and Spurs interested in Marcus Rashford. Rashford's reported interest from Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham creates pressure at Manchester United without confirming his exit. The useful question is which destination could offer a genuine reset, not which badge makes the loudest headline. Declaring a favorite now would be guesswork because no fee or agreement has been supplied. BBC's gossip report says Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham are interested in Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford. Rashford remains a Manchester United player, and the package gives us no completed transfer, no agreed fee, and no confirmed favorite. That's important because a three-club chase sounds decisive, while actually telling us very little about the next contract or conversation. The football logic differs at each possible destination. Chelsea have just completed a major attacking investment with Rodgers, which raises questions about how many premium attacking pieces one squad can absorb. Arsenal's interest would place Rashford inside a team competing for control and consistency, while Tottenham would offer another potential route to a fresh start. None of those possibilities is confirmed. Manchester United face the uncomfortable part. If Rashford stays, the club must decide how central he is to the next project. If he leaves, the club loses a high-profile player and must replace production, personality, or both. The easy headline is a transfer chase. The harder decision is whether United can turn an unsettled situation into a coherent squad plan. Chelsea's interest in Rashford is still only reported, but their approach for Alex Scott produced a concrete answer. Bournemouth said no. Bournemouth reject Chelsea's £64 million bid for Alex Scott. A rejected £64 million bid shows Chelsea's intent, but it doesn't mean Scott is moving to Stamford Bridge. Bournemouth's refusal gives them leverage and makes the next offer, if one comes, the real test. The fee is striking because the rejection leaves the negotiation open rather than settled. BBC reports that Bournemouth rejected a £64 million bid from Chelsea for midfielder Alex Scott. Scott remains a Bournemouth player, and the report doesn't say that a later offer has been accepted. Bournemouth have also reportedly said Scott turned down a new contract amid wider Premier League interest, which adds pressure without confirming an exit. This is the sort of story that tells us more about negotiation power than destination. Chelsea have shown they're willing to test the market with a major offer. Bournemouth have shown they aren't automatically waving goodbye when the number looks enormous. For a club outside the financial elite, resisting pressure is easier in theory than in practice, especially when the player hasn't accepted a new contract. The next bid could be the important one. The Scott bid was rejected. Chelsea's next major move wasn't. Morgan Rogers is now the clearest evidence that this window is being shaped by action, not just speculation. Chelsea complete club record £117 million signing of Morgan Rogers. Rogers' move is confirmed, and its reported £117 million fee makes it Chelsea's club record signing. The 7-year contract spreads the financial commitment across time, but it doesn't remove the expectation attached to the player. The tactical verdict will come from Rogers' role and output, not from the size of the announcement graphic. Morgan Rogers has joined Chelsea from Aston Villa for a reported £117 million and signed a 7-year contract. The Supplied Guardian report identifies the move as Chelsea's record signing, while the package warns that £117 million shouldn't be treated as definitive under every accounting measure. Still, the message is loud enough. Chelsea have made Rogers one of the central investments of their summer. That changes the conversation around Chelsea's other reported targets. When the club is merely linked with Alex Scott or Marcus Rashford, we're discussing possibility. With Rogers, we're discussing responsibility. He arrives with a huge fee, a long contract, and the expectation that his attacking qualities will translate into a Chelsea side that must turn recruitment into results. A 7-year deal can protect the club's planning, but it can't protect the player from scrutiny after a quiet month. The fee may reflect Rogers' World Cup profile and long-term upside according to the fan discussion attached to the story. Fine, but potential is still a promise. Chelsea have bought the next chapter. Now they need the performances that make the price feel less like a dare. The biggest Chelsea consequence is still coming, and it starts with a £117 million decision. John Stones emerges as potential Chelsea target after leaving Manchester City. John Stones offers experience without a transfer fee, but Chelsea's interest remains potential rather than agreed. His defensive leadership could help, while his injury history makes the low-cost label less simple. Chelsea need to assess availability as carefully as reputation. John Stones is a free agent after leaving Manchester City at the end of his contract, and reports from BBC Sport and Sky Sports say Chelsea have identified him as a potential option. No agreement is reported. Stones isn't a Manchester City player anymore, but he also hasn't agreed terms with Chelsea. The attraction is straightforward. A player with elite experience could add calm, defensive intelligence, and leadership without a transfer fee. That sounds like smart housekeeping after a club record attacking purchase. Then comes the catch. Stones' fitness history means the decision can't be based on reputation alone. A free transfer can become expensive if availability disappears at the wrong moment. Chelsea's challenge is balance. Rogers represents a huge attacking commitment. Stones would be a different kind of gamble, built around experience and risk management. The club may be trying to cover both ends of the squad, but neither move guarantees defensive stability or attacking chemistry. Chelsea's spending raises questions about resources. At Liverpool, the conversation is even more structural. Who might gain influence, and what would that mean for future recruitment? Consortium led by Amit Bhatia expresses interest in Liverpool minority stake. Amit Bhatia's consortium is reported to want a minority stake, not a full takeover. Outside investment could affect Liverpool's transfer ambitions, but no immediate spending increase should be assumed. The important issue is influence and strategy, not a fantasy budget appearing overnight. BBC reports that a consortium led by British-Indian businessman Amit Bhatia is interested in buying a minority stake in Liverpool. No transaction is reported as completed. That distinction matters because minority investment doesn't automatically mean a change of ownership, a new transfer budget, or a dramatic rewrite of the club's sporting strategy. Liverpool supporters are already asking the obvious question, could outside money fund bigger recruitment? Maybe, but the package doesn't confirm that outcome. A minority investor may bring capital, commercial pressure, or a different voice around the club, yet the scale of influence would depend on the final agreement. Calling it a full takeover would simply be wrong. The risk for fans is letting ownership speculation become a substitute for football planning. Liverpool still need decisions on recruitment, squad balance, and competitive ambition regardless of whether a consortium advances. Until the stake is actually purchased, this is a potential change in the boardroom, not a confirmed transfer weapon. Arsenal's midfield links have grabbed the spotlight, but squad building also means deciding who no longer gets enough minutes. Reiss Nelson's situation is quieter, though potentially just as important. Reiss Nelson attracts overseas interest as Arsenal assess his future. Nelson is attracting reported overseas interest, but no destination or formal bid has been confirmed. A move could give him regular football, yet Arsenal must judge the value of losing depth before acting. The story is about squad space and opportunity, not an announced departure. BBC reports that overseas clubs are interested in Reiss Nelson while Arsenal assess his future. Nelson remains an Arsenal player, and no departure has been confirmed. There isn't a named destination in the supplied evidence, so any confident prediction about his next club would be decoration rather than reporting. For Nelson, the sporting question is simple but uncomfortable. Can he get regular football at Arsenal, or would a new environment finally unlock the career supporters have been waiting to see? For Arsenal, the calculation is different. Moving him on may create space and clarity, but it also reduces depth and could leave the squad exposed if injuries arrive. This is where a transfer window becomes real. Big names get the graphics. Fringe decisions shape the bench. Nelson's future remains open, and Arsenal's assessment still has to become a formal offer before anything changes. We finish with a different kind of transfer window reality check. Not a rumor about a club, but a player status update that can change fantasy decisions quickly. Fantasy football impact. Bucky Irving's latest injury update, Sports Illustrated. The supplied package only identifies a Sports Illustrated fantasy football injury update headline. It doesn't provide a verified injury detail, timetable, club context, or confirmed fantasy recommendation. That makes caution the useful takeaway rather than pretending the update says more than the evidence allows. The final item is titled Fantasy Football Impact, Bucky Irving's latest injury update from Sports Illustrated. That's all the supplied facts give us. There isn't a confirmed diagnosis, no recovery timeline, and no additional club information in the package, so we can't responsibly turn the headline into a definite starter-sit instruction. For fantasy managers, the practical rule is brutally simple. Don't make a major roster decision from a headline alone. Check the full report, the official injury designation, and the next verified update before dropping a player or changing a lineup. Football already produces enough bad decisions without allowing a vague notification to manage the squad. And that brings us back to the transfer window. Premier League Summer Transfer Window 2026 deals ins and outs is moving fast, but the clearest answer is still Chelsea's confirmed £117 million Morgan Rogers signing rather than the rumors surrounding everyone else. That's the market in one episode. Confirmed business from Chelsea, reported interest around Manchester United, Arsenal, and Tottenham, a rejected £64 million offer for Alex Scott, and a Liverpool investment proposal that hasn't crossed the finish line. The lesson is simple. Ask who has actually acted, who is still considering, and who benefits from making a rumor look enormous. Tablo Sports will keep separating the paperwork from the theater.